Loki, Season 2, Episode 4. Did Victor Timely just blow up and spaghettify? It looked like he did. This show is I don't want to badmouth the previous season, but this show, this season, these episodes, they're better. They're better than what they were showing before. And I dig that, man. It looks like they're going to try to make Miss Minutes one of the main villains. And it's possible. I mean, she was there from the beginning. She was there before Renslayer. She said that Timely invented her. Kang invented her. He Who Remains invented her. Initially to play, checkers or chess with. So she didn't exist before him. But she's been there a long time. A really long time. And if the Aurora Boreas is working the way it seems to be working, Kang may have been here forever, because he's Victor Timely, who becomes eventually Kang, or a variant, who becomes He Who Remains, who has to set in motion things that will create Victor Timely, who becomes Kang, who becomes He Who Remains. It's a circle. Also, OB says that he learned everything he knows about the TVA and about time from Victor Timely. Victor Timely says he learned everything that he knew from reading the TVA manual written by OB. So OB taught everything to Victor, who taught everything to OB, and so forth and so on. I said previously that this was like a snake biting its own tail. And he says that in the episode. It's a metaphor for, something, a forever loop, something that starts and begins in the same cycle, and starts and ends in the same cycle. This was a good episode. People got killed that I didn't expect to die. It appears that everybody's going to die. I don't know how they're going to do that, because they still got more show to go. But Loki, it's so many things happen. Loki pruned himself, which was one of my theories, that it was Loki. So Loki went to prune himself, right? In the second episode. And then someone zaps him. And I remember saying that I know that he didn't zap himself, because you could see where his hands were. It came from behind him. So I'm thinking, well, who did that? Then, when everything's going to heck in a handbasket, Loki ends up going down a hallway where he sees himself waiting. And I figure he just guessed, oh well. So he zapped himself and pruned himself. But, I mean, if you erase yourself from time 10 minutes from now, how do you get to 10 minutes forward, meaning now? How do you get there? Because you don't exist to travel those 10 minutes. If I took a time machine and went back in time and blew myself up yesterday, then that means that I can't go through time and be here today to go back in time to blow myself up. I just stopped it from happening by stopping myself. They're going to have to explain that, man. There's a hole, and I get the whole different timelines. When you do something that creates a different timeline, I get that. But That's not what's happening here. They've already said that the TVA time works differently there. So differently would, in this case, be normal. I'm curious about that. Sylvie sends Renslayer to the end of time. She wanted to punish her. Me personally, I would have sent her to the dinosaur age without any tools or gadgets or whatever. I'd have sent her there. She's not going to survive there. Maybe a couple of hours. If she's really good, maybe a day or two. But she ain't surviving in the dinosaur age. I would have sent her there. But instead, she sent her to the end of time. Which it seems like if it's the end of time, as soon as you get there, time should end. There should be nothing left. But she's walking around, she's looking at stuff, she's talking to Miss Minutes. And I'm like, if it's the end of time, if it's the end of the road, you can't go no further. If it's the end of a book, there's no more to read. If it's the end of the meal, you can't eat nothing. If it's the end of time, nothing should happen after you get there because you're still experiencing time. If you're there for 20 minutes, 20 minutes of time have evolved. So it's not the end of time. You got there maybe 20 minutes before time was over with. It's not the end of time. But they said they sent her to the end of time, but she was just walking around and talking and stuff. And I'm like, that ain't the end of time. 5 minutes from now, she's still talking. And she's still waiting for the end of time. I didn't get that. But she learns things from Miss Minutes. She was the general that eliminated all the other Kang variants, apparently, for He Who Remains, who I'm fairly certain now was Kang, who was Victor Timely. So He Who Remains made sure that he would exist by essentially planting a seed that would grow into him. It's like if you were on your last days, but you had the ability to go backwards in time, and you did a whole Marty McFly and got your parents to meet so that they could create you, and you existed still for some reason, your consciousness still existed in that moment. So it's what he's done. He's at the end of time, and he set things in place that would assure that he would come. I don't even know why he would have to do that. If he exists right now, then everything that had to happen has already happened. If he had to force it to happen, if he had to, nudge things a certain way so that he would exist, then the very first version of him existed. So he didn't have to do anything. I set my camera up and the lighting and my notes in front of me. And I'm talking now. But if I go back in time, I don't have to say, hey, I got to remember to set these things up. I don't have to do it because it's already done. I've done it. That's how I've gotten to this moment because I already did it. So, but he had to prepare and make sure that he was able to get to that moment by setting things in motion, which should have already happened. I don't know about that either. Maybe I'm thinking through it too hard. Maybe they're going to explain it. Maybe there's a twist. Who knows? But it's a good episode. Apparently, everyone died just at the end of the show. So I'm thinking, where are they going? Renslayer was pruned, but when they've already showed that when people get pruned, they get sent to the end of time. So everybody, there should be a bunch of people there, not just the Loki variants, everybody that got pruned. And all of the timelines should be there. They pruned entire timelines. We now know that they just got sent to the end of time. They didn't dissolve into nothingness. They are basically teleported. So, where are they? I'm thinking they're not going to mention that either. That's plot hole. They're just going to leave that all plot holy. But aside from the plot holes, this is good. I'm really curious about which came first, the OB or the Kang. Which one taught who? Who taught who? Who's zooming who? Did Kang, the thing that he did as Victor, was that what OB learned in order to write the TVA manual? Or did OB write the TVA manual and that's what taught Victor Timely so that he could eventually teach? I don't know. It's a great big old circle. Snake biting his own tail, man. But it's interesting. I like this episode. I had a friend of mine that said it was too complicated. He didn't like it because there was too much stuff going on. But that's the story, man. That's the story. There's a lot of stuff going on, and I dig that. I dig it so much that I would give Loki season 2 after this episode 9 bags of popcorn. 9 bags of popcorn. I barely give those out because, it's got to be really good to get a 9. But 9 bags of popcorn because the story is great. I see where it's going. I see how they can use this story to bring in so many other people. I mean, they're destroying timelines, but in the comics, when they destroyed the other worlds and the timelines are smashing into each other, some people like King Hyperion, he just kind of jumped from his timeline to this one. And now he exists here. The Squadron Supreme, they just kind of skipped over and now they're here. They're in the 616 universe. And more. In the Age of Apocalypse, the Dark Beast came over. And he just skipped the timeline and he just jumped over here. He's here now. So the X-Men could do that. They could exist out in another universe and they could be ready to prune their universe and they could just kind of skip over. Deadpool could skip over. And that way they can tell you their stories and their origins without destroying what they're doing in the Marvel Universe, the MCU right now, because these things will have happened. How Wolverine got his metal claws. How Sabretooth became a lunatic psycho killer. All that kind of stuff. Magneto in the camps. They could show all of those stories. They'll just, they happened in another universe. But they can show them. And those people can still exist in this universe because they just kind of jumped over. They have origins, just not here. So they could do that and still bring the people over. It will be good. Wolverine will remember meeting Captain America during the war. But it won't be this Captain America. He'll have memories, but it won't be the same guy. Could be more stories. I'm curious about what's going to happen with this. I'm curious about that. Next week, I'm ready for the Marvels. I want to see what happens with the Marvels. I'm curious about that. But that's what I think. More importantly, what do you think? Now that we had a chance to talk about the video, let's talk about it again in the comments. And as always, if you like the video, if you like the content, subscribe. And then like.
Popcorn Passport. Get your Popcorn Passport. Popcorn Passport. Popcorn Passport.